one of the Republican senators, Rob Hutton, who does a lot of work with Wisconsin Voices, comes to our events and stuff,
Yeah.
but he was sitting there and he was not feeling it. I said, "What's the matter?" He's like, "I'm sick." But he's like, "I'm still doing the people's work." I was like,
Man, there's something
but
going on.
there was a lot. Now, the two things that I took out of this is, especially when I was up in the Senate, they had the first vote was on the schedule of sessions.
Mhm.
And there was, and I don't know how this worked. I'm just telling you, Democrat, Republican, but they wanted to extend the sessions because it kind of end relatively quickly. And I think most of the Democrats, if not all, voted against the schedule because they said this is a year-round job. And I think it went 19-14.
Mhm.
I think that's what the vote was, and it ended up passing. The Democrats thought that they should be at the Capitol longer or having more sessions to debate and stuff, and
Get things
Democrats said
done.
no. Republicans said we can get this job done, within this time frame. So I don't know what that was. It was just weird.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I noticed is they came out swinging right away with the
speech at the end.
speeches at the
Yeah.
end, where I would think they would be kumbaya, like let's work
I heard
together.
I heard the tone.
Yeah, it was
I
like,
heard it. I was sitting there eating my little cake pop. Well, I came back in for eating my cake pop, the little Republican
Yeah.
Democrat cake pops they had in the assembly, Tommy Thompson assembly room. And I heard the tone over the speaker as I'm walking through. I'm like, yeah, this don't sound too friendly now that he got the vote for the speaker of the assembly. And it was a little bit more like, yeah, we got the position now. I can talk about stuff.
Yeah, and it was like, I would think on the first day you could like bring down the rhetoric. They came in and they talked a little bit about the surplus, which brought the topic for today in, but there's like, we want to get this money back to the people.
Mhm.
We have a 4 and they said 4 billion, but it's actually 4.5
right?
billion
Yeah.
dollar surplus. And we're going to get this money back to the people. And I was like,
I
why
heard
don't
that
they
too.
do this? Why don't they do it? And then I started like kind of researching. And we'll get into that topic because I think a woman did an op-ed in the Journal Sentinel that
Yeah, that
really
was
kind of
good.
breaks it
Yeah.
down and it makes people think of, is it really a surplus?
Hmm.
And then the Democrats would come in and they would say, well, well, that was interesting. That kind of tone. It was like,
Mhm.
but I really want to work across the aisle. Da, da, da. So it was like they already got their gloves off. And I think the first session for the Senate is on Wednesday. They're adjourned until Wednesday. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
what'd you think? Was that the first time you've ever been there?
Yeah, that was my first time because we went up there went to two.
Well, I'm talking about for the swearing in.
Yeah. Other times we were up there was for the Governor Evers budget speech. I think we went up there for budget, but going up there for the swearing in and just putting a name to the faces that you already have seen, and I already told you how I've seen some that I usually see on TV stopping or trying to blockade certain things or getting money to certain areas, but that's a whole nother subject. But it was cool. I like to observe and watch. I love seeing the background of those things, seeing like where
and you had the
media sets
perfect
up.
seat because you was like, you were sitting right where nobody could really see you, but you could see everything.
Didn't have to worry about
on.
being on the camera too much. I can still see our people. I've seen Gabby up top, and then we still see our people that we
Shouts
have in
out
Milwaukee.
to Shanita, our
Shanita.
Madison our lead organizer in Madison. She was there.
Yep, I see her in the gallery
making
as well.
sure she connected. The reason we went is because we need to know who the players are.
Mm-hmm.
And even though our whole department does partnerships, we need to know who the players are, what they're doing, and how they're doing it.
Yeah.
So we can best serve the people that we serve, which is, and I always say, protect democracy, build community, and teach advocacy within the BIPOC, disenfranchised, and underserved people.
Yeah.
That is the goal of Wisconsin Voices. That's our mission. That's our vision. That's all of that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting.
Yeah, the weather was interesting. You
We
know,
got in and out though. We did, and Brian drove too fast. So let's so one of the main topics, let's get into topics, because one of the main things that they were touting is about this $4.5 million surplus.
yeah,
Billion, B with the B.
yeah.
4.5 billion. And you know how everybody say it's a surplus. What we doing with the surplus? You know, we should be giving that money back to the people.
Yeah.
And I found this, and I have to say, it's her opinion, and it's the
What?
views of the author.
Right. What did she call it though? She didn't call it a surplus. What's the other S word she used?
What did she call it?
A sham.
Well, I wasn't gonna go there, but that's what she said.
Right. That's what she said.
That's what she said. It was, and she breaks it down really nicely.
Yeah.
So we have so let me just give you a little background, and I'm gonna take a lot of this from her article, and then some other. I had to double check the fact check, to make sure that what she wrote was. But according to at the end of the fiscal year of 2024, they had a $4.5 billion state budget surplus. Once again, this has been going on. They've had a surplus for the last couple of years, especially since Tony Evers has been in office. And they go back and forth and they bicker about, where the money goes. So let's break this down. So the way the budget is passed, and we talked about this a little yesterday. Tony Evers, who's the governor, gives his recommendation for the budget, and usually he's a Democrat, so it's going to be, more progressive leaning, and spending goes into a more progressive way, in the sense of services, not really like, and Republican ones or budgets usually, look at spending, but they also do tax breaks and different stuff like that.
And
those are those key things that they want to do. But she talks about her, so he sends that budget in, and for the last few budgets, the Republican leaning assembly and House or whatever, they get the budget and then they toss it out and they start fresh, basically. So they don't really even put anything that he wants to put in there. They usually start from scratch. And the only thing Tony Evers can do is use his line item veto. Now they've even taken some of his powers on the line item veto and taken them away in recent years, but like he can take a letter out, a word out. Like I remember it was the last budget session, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was like a whole bunch of money that was supposed to be not given. It was only a small amount, but after he took an A out and crossed the and put some stuff in, it ended that this would be funded until 2037 or something like that. So he got what he wanted, but they have to be meticulous about what words and letters they can take out or scratching whole line items, just to make sure that nothing is, that he can approve this budget. Interesting. And then but the one thing that she talks about is what does a surplus mean? And what she's really saying is it leaves a lot of things underfunded. So if you have this money and you're supposed to use it, but it's not being utilized, obviously you're going to have a surplus. Even in your household, you have $5,000 for the house. If you don't pay your rent, but you pay all your other bills, obviously you're going to have a surplus, but you didn't pay your rent. So there is something that is underfunded. So she talks about some of the things that are underfunded. let's go these one at a time. And please weigh in. It's 414-444-5250, 414-444-5253. Weigh in on this because it's if you look at it this way, it's interesting. So one of the things they're talking about is underfunding schools. So you have a surplus, but you're underfunding the schools, the state's portion of money that is given to the schools. And that is why we had a record number of school referendums. Here's the thing with that. You think we have a surplus and you're saving money, but you're really not saving money. It's just coming from a different source. It's coming from, instead of using sales tax and all that other stuff that generates funding for the state, you're just getting that same exact dollars taken out in property taxes through school referendums, to kind of make up for the money that they're losing, which could be just given by the state.
Yeah.
The UW system is asking for 855 million, according to this article, 855 million.
I see that.
So they can stop tuition increases and layoffs.
And keep keep their 2-year locations open as well, looks like.
So again, we have a $4.5 million surplus, but to a billion. I gotta say,
right? Don't forget the B. I know,
but it's coming out of your pockets if your kids go to any of these UW schools, because eventually they're gonna have to raise the tuition because they don't have enough money. And if they can't get the money from the state, where do they get it from? They get it from tuition. That is, let's go into the prison system. There are a couple of prisons that should not even be, they're not livable. People shouldn't even be in there, even if it's a prison. They have lockdowns that last weeks and months. There's been inmate deaths. They, according to this article, they have spotty medical care, just basic spotty medical care. And then even the Waupun Warren, what is that? He's the warden.
Yeah.
And some of the staffers have been arrested for allegedly misconduct and abuse. But we'll put more money into our prison systems, but not in the right way, in the sense of they'll lock up somebody, but they're not keeping the buildings up to code. They're not, providing at least the basic medical care. They're talking about as people get older, they're going to have to go into assisted living, and
as they call it, the silver tsunami.
Oh yeah, the silver
tsunami is on the way.
Because that is, what are those ages? Those people are, what is the baby? What's the ages for baby boomer?
Baby boomers go from anywhere from like, is it like
mid 50s? Goes to 19. I know the back end is
early,
1969 like or something like that.
Yeah.
But from 42 or 45 to 1969 or something like that. So they're
46 to 64.
What is it?
1946 to 1964.
46 to 64.
Yeah. So that's two of my uncles.
Well, my mom, I thought she was a baby boomer. I guess she's a silent generation. Isn't that the one before that?
Yeah, silent generation. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom and dad were born in 42, 45.
Oh, yeah.
So they are going to have to go to assisted living.
Yeah.
A lot of them rely on the Medicare, Medicaid. What is it, Medicare, to provide their services, and it's under duress. People are not going into these fields, and if they are, some of these places are not very friendly to the people that they are supposed to be serving. Brian.
Yeah.
As a young man who but do you feel this stuff? Because I mean, you don't have a family, you're not married.
Yeah.
So and people say that young people don't feel it, or single people don't feel it. But do you feel any of this stuff?
Well, not directly, but indirectly, due to the fact that it affects the people around me. And, the people around me, if they, if their kids are lacking and, the basic fundamentals of education, if people around me can't get their medication or
your granny,
my granny, like I got, the great uncles and the uncles and,
but it does affect
a lot of people around me.
Because here's the thing, like I'm a renter too.
Right.
And, when that tax bill came out for the people who own my building, Glendale's tax bill were up tremendously because they have on Glendale, I think they have 4 referendums over they have one that's for just day-to-day operations. They have 2 for that. And then Nicolet has 2 for their renovations and stuff. So they have 2 referendums on there.
Yeah.
Do you think my landlord is just going to go ahead and pay that? No, she is going to raise the rent.
Yeah.
So
my rent have ran
people who say that, there's property taxpayers or property owners are the only one paying. No, it's called rent increases. That is how the property owners adjust for higher taxes. You do pay it. So don't let anybody tell you that you don't pay those property taxes when they come up, because if you are a renter, because you do.
Yeah.
When you get that $25, that $50, that $100 extra per month. If it's $100, that's $1,200 or $1,200 a year that you're paying.
Yeah.
That covers that rent. I mean that
tax. Yeah.
That tax. So yeah, you're paying it. But the biggest, I don't know. This is so deep. But the biggest issue is a lot of these communities are hurting the local communities, Milwaukee, the counties, the the cities, the villages. They are having to do operational. Before, usually you didn't see a lot of operational referendums from the local municipalities. Yeah. And you rarely saw them in schools either, unless it was a capital referendum where they had to build a school, or they needed maintenance for their buildings, but you didn't see operationals as much as you did. But because it's so underfunded, they're doing a lot of them. This is the new so with the shared revenue, I know Act 12 helped a little. I think it's Act 12, but it helped a little bit. But it doesn't help. Where is the local control? Like, give us the money, we'll figure out how to spend it. State, you don't need to tell us how to spend our local dollars. Give us the money that is due to each municipality, and we will handle our business.
I was looking at something earlier. It was saying that it was at 1.7 billion, and then it shrunk down to 4.5, and I guess this was due to a loss of, I guess, like you said, that spending in the state, and then a loss of like 1 billion in federal dollars that was out there. But so it seems like, and I was wondering too, do they treat the states like, would the feds treat the states like how when I have worked with a federally contracted company where, you ain't spending this money, we ain't about to send you another 500 million or a billion or whatever the case may be, because
I'm not for sure, because I don't, but a lot of some of that stuff was ARPA money that was given, and it has to be spent on certain things, or how it has to be spent. So and there's a a thing where now I've heard Republicans say, and this is true.
Mhm.
This is 100% true. You do not take a one-time infusion of cash
From the feds.
to replace a budget item that is ongoing.
Okay.
So and I think they did that back with the when the state had a lawsuit. I think it was against the tobacco industry,
Mhm.
and they got a settlement. And I think it was Governor Doyle, and I'm doing this by memory. I think Governor Doyle put the money into the budget. But it was a one-time infusion of money which fixed the budget at the time. But remember, when you do a one-time infusion, that expense is going to be there 2 years later. It's going to be there 4 years later.
Yeah.
So whatever it has to be done, you have to figure out how do we figure out what to do and still make it sustainable. That is the I think the key to this. But so many of our services are underfunded or not funded at all.
Mhm.
And that's why we have the surplus.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, Jermaine.
The disagreement on both sides of the aisle, keeping them holding up the money. Is like, okay, I'm not, since we can't agree here, we're not going to send the money. And they, it looks at some of them faces up there. You want all that money, that tax money from the state. It was from the city of Milwaukee, but you don't want to shoot that money back down. So,
and we don't know
like
what
that.
We don't know what. Yeah, so it's like
I hate it.
They're not giving this money out, and it looks like it's a surplus.
Yeah.
But you're paying on the back end. Either you're paying in property taxes, you're paying in tuition hikes, you're paying into childcare hikes. You're paying. And the services need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to pay eventually no matter what. Your services for the local, your local pickups, like your garbage and stuff. All of a sudden it used to be, 2 every other week you got it. Sometimes they'll change it to they're only picking up recycling every other week instead of every week.
Yeah.
There's so many things that could possibly that you are losing, and it looks good on paper when they say we have a $4.5 million surplus, but the services that you're losing and the services that or the monies that you're paying on property tax or local taxes or sales tax, that is really where you're still paying.
Yeah.
We got a caller. Caller, go ahead.
Morning. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good. A couple of minutes ago, you spoke about the ability to use the money locally, and so then, right as you said it, I thought about rather than paying it to Madison and then having to wrangle with them and wrestle, why is it that we even have to pay it to them? Why don't we keep our own money and do it locally, and then we'd be autonomous instead of being under their thumb? If they're just handing out money, we call it revenue sharing. Is that what you call it?
Yes. Shared revenue.
Okay. So, yeah, shared revenue. And so then, rather than waiting for them to redistribute it back to us, if we were able to just say to them, look, we'll keep our share, and then you guys can do whatever you want with your share. All the rest of the towns, if they want to keep their share, and just get Madison out of our business. They still have to do state roads. I understand that. State office buildings like the state building downtown and so forth. But if it's a municipal issue like schools, then it seems logical that we just change the whole story and say, look, we're going to average out a certain amount. We're going to figure this out, because otherwise we're just sending them money and begging for it. Like you just spoke about a surplus, and so that means more money went into the state, and they still have a certain amount. This has been going on for about 2 years, hasn't it?
2 or 3 years. But sir, let me explain. What we're talking about is there really isn't a surplus. It's just that
Okay.
things are being underfunded. And this is what the article is saying, that they're being underfunded,
Sure.
or they're fighting back and forth on how to spend the money. And since they can't agree, then they're just not spending it.
Yep.
And
Sure.
that's why we get it. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so then what you just said makes sense, and then what I'm trying to do is harmonize with you what you just said a couple of minutes ago. I didn't hear the article, so I kind of came in the last minute. So then I realized some kind of policy would have to be changed, like you just said, underfunded. So then that means they're keeping a certain proportion of money that we've put into a pool. Would you think I'm correct about that?
Yeah, all the sales tax from the state go into
Okay.
the state. Like when you pay state sales tax, that all goes in.
Right.
Anything that is a tax that is state
Sure.
income tax, all that money goes to the state.
Right.
And
Right.
then
Yeah.
the portion, and then they portion it out. Now they did make a deal where some of there was new monies. I mean, I should say there was a better percentage going back out in shared revenue back to the states, or to the cities, but
Okay.
it doesn't even cover. I know Milwaukee has a huge amount of money that they give, and
Sure.
they don't get nearly as much money back as they should in just shared revenue. And then when they did the shared revenue deal, they put so many stipulations on it. It had to be
Yeah.
for the police department, and you
Sure.
had to hire a certain amount of cops in between that. But I don't even know if they actually hit that quota. But there's
Right.
always speculations. Now,
Sure.
I know one of the things that the League of the Municipalities is trying to push, or it was trying to push, is each municipality, I think city and village, decides if they're going to put a local tax on. And that
You
is
mean
up to local
would
state
that
or
be similar to
local
what I
sales
said?
tax. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Would that be similar to what I said a minute ago?
Yeah, it to a point, yes. Because what it would do is, if you had a local state tax, what it would do is allow, I think, like Glendale. I'm in Glendale, and I'm trying to remember, but it would give us at least $1 million, and a 1% sales tax would give us $1 million into our budget, which would not have to increase the property taxes, because this is another part of the revenue that we would get. So we wouldn't, and everybody pays for it then. Anybody that comes into Glendale, everybody's paying. Anybody who comes into Milwaukee, they're paying it, and not just the property tax owners of the houses that are in those areas. You know how many people come into Milwaukee to go to the Bucks games, buy stuff, and then they go out of Milwaukee because they don't live there. They go to the suburbs, and then we're paying for the stuff.
So what you just said now, a minute ago, in this couple minutes, would you say that then would you be able to say to the state, look, we'll handle this percentage for ourselves, and then we just will, you guys can do what you want, and for the rest of the municipal, you just said the League of Municipalities. What would happen if the League of Municipalities just said to Madison, look, we don't need revenue sharing because we are a city, we're a trade center, we got people, we got business here, we don't need Madison.
So the league, and here's the thing, the League of Municipalities is an organization that helps lobby for city and villages, but they don't have any power to do anything really. They can lobby, and we pay the cities pay them for their services, like they give legal advice sometimes, they help us, but that's what they're supposed to be doing, is pushing and fighting for the local government. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I was on that board for 3 years, so I kind of know how they work.
You were on the board? Okay. Now, I guess I just figured it out, what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
If we're just sending the money to them to get it back, it seems like we're doing something ridiculous. Like we're just sending it to Madison, and then we're supposedly getting it back like some sort of recycle. Why? If we're just getting it back.
I kind of get it. I mean, here's the thing. I kind of get it because, like, if Milwaukee decided to keep all their money, every sales tax they had, every property tax, all that, all the income tax, the rest of the state would just flounder. There are so many rural areas.
I'm sorry. Don't you think those other towns, the function of those towns is to do whatever little commerce they have? That's what makes a town. So are we supposed to carry the state?
Yeah, we kind of do. I mean, yes. I mean, in a way, because
you think so?
I really believe so. It's part of Milwaukee's responsibility. They're the biggest municipality. They're the only tier 1 city in the state. There is some responsibility because when Milwaukee does well, and it's been proven that when Milwaukee does well, the rest of the state does well because it is, you're buying a bunch of stuff here. So I guess it's for us to take care of other people, but we also shouldn't be, Milwaukee County should not be killed out of this deal.
Yes.
Because we should be getting a little bit more. That's my opinion.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah. So we're supposed to take care of everybody, but not necessarily get shafted on the whole thing.
Okay. Wouldn't it be logical to say we'll handle most of our affairs and then we can send a bit like for emergency, so that we all have a rainy day fund, but normal everyday expenses we would handle and the other towns would. Does that sort of make sense?
Well, it does, but think about what the state. So I get what you're saying, but think about what the state actually pays for. The state are in charge of the highways. The state is in charge.
Yeah, that part I understand.
So
sure, I understand.
So
like
they could take. Like now, I definitely believe. You know what? And plus, state is also remember the county is the arm of the state. So a lot of their money comes like all the services that are getting from the I call them the quality of life services monies from the state. So I think if you are right, and it is, I believe, and this is just my opinion, it's feasible to let local government deal with local government issues, and then so you take the money that you need to run the state and run what you have to do, and then let us have I think that's what you're trying to say, and let us have the rest of it proportionally to what everybody needs.
Well, yeah, in a way, it was sort of like saying that there's a certain amount that we're going to be spending anyways on our own. So then divvy up instead of sending that proportion, we're just going to get back. Let's say, I don't know the number. So let's just say we're spending we're sending them $100 and we're going to expect to get back 50. Then why didn't we just keep that 50 and lower the whole state tax? And then there'll be the rainy day fund for the extra $50 that will go into this pot, this kitty that in case there's something wrong, a tornado or something, or a flood or something, then at least we are helping each other in emergency. But normal everyday stuff, we have a certain budget, and then why don't we just keep that part that's already going to be here anyways instead of recycling it through Madison? Am I making better sense?
Yeah, you make perfect sense, but that's why we have to elect people who are like-minded of what we want to be done.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. When we come back, we're going to talk about we're going to take a break. We were supposed to take a break a while ago. Jermaine looking at me like, when we come back, we're going to talk about another op-ed or article that talks about, even though we have new lines, gerrymander, so because we used to be so gerrymandered. Now they're talking about, well, they're still not that great. It just helped us a little bit, but it's not that great. We'll be back. This is Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices, 860 AM, 106 FM. Oh, I think this is a conversation that we need to be having. But I do have to ask, is Carvey okay over there? He's still sick.
Yeah, Carver's still recuperating.
But what he's doing is showing up.
Yeah.
Making sure
Yeah.
that people get the message from Be a Voice with those kinds of voices. And I thank you, Carvey.
CP.
Carvey P. Did I do it right?
Yeah. Carvey P speaking.
Yeah.
We got another caller. Caller, go ahead.
Yeah, very quickly before you get to your article there, Tamika. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. Brian, Rideout, Carvey. Yep.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. Good morning. I guess I guess the last caller, I guess the name was John or something. I kind of talked about yesterday the surplus, and then kind of what we were edging on what we were talking about today a little bit here, because I kind of came in a little bit late because I was doing something else. But help me understand all these, Green Bay, Sheboygan, all these other places. Isn't there money earmarked for those places? And then if we do have a surplus and they need, then I guess shared, shared, what do you call it? Shared what?
Shared revenue?
Yeah, shared revenue. Then doesn't that come into play? But if they've got money earmarked and they don't need it, well, it should be more evenly distributed if it's a surplus. That, I guess that's kind of what I was trying to get at yesterday. But if because just like we've got money earmarked, but the potholes still aren't getting taken care of. But if that's the case, then, well, the surplus isn't coming in to help us. Well, the money that we've got earmarked for us, it's not just going to fix trucks and buses and all that stuff like that. It's earmarked for the salt and other things, the park, all that other stuff. So there's money earmarked for everything, the airport, the parks, and things like this. So if there's money earmarked for it, then and there's a surplus, then where's it falling apart then? I'm not understanding. And that goes across the board for Green Bay, Madison, Sheboygan, Barneville, whoever, And I'll listen to you over the air unless you want me to stay on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So
right.
there is, I think, let's break this down. And I will get more into how this all works, but the shared revenue is a formula that they use that part of the money is, and it's a formula, it's an outdated, antiquated formula, but that formula is used to give money back to communities. Here is where you're talking about, roads and stuff. That is, so what the state does, or what the municipalities or local governments do, is they get a certain amount of money from the state. They get a certain amount of money from property taxes, and then they budget for that. It's not that the state says, oh, here's the money for you. You do everything you need to do. And then, if you have extra, you have extra. That's not how it works. It's the state gives you a certain amount of money, which is the shared revenue portion of it. Then you get municipalities and villages and towns or whatever gets money from property taxes. And in your property tax, it's usually the village or city or whatever you live in, the municipality you live in. Then it's the tech schools, the MATCs and the Waukesha Technical College, they get their portion. And then MMSD, which is the sewer system, and then schools. So that's all the stuff that comes on your property taxes. And there are rules behind how much you can ask for monies. There's a levy limit. So that's how much money you can ask the people in your area, in your local government, to pay. It's a percentage. And because there's levy limits that the state has mandated, and they haven't been changed since I think the 80s, that's all you can do. And you can only get more money depending if you have net new construction. And that is one of the things, like if you have net new construction, not just construction, but net new construction, that's when you can up your levy and make sure that you can tax more. But some of the Milwaukee, yeah, they don't have a real big issue with net new construction, but some of the other municipalities that we live in do. I know Glendale is almost landlocked. Shorewood was innovative and they tore stuff down and then rebuild, and that was their net new construction. But that is how. So there's a couple of things. The formula needs to be redone. The shared revenue, even though they did some work on it in the last session 2 years ago, they need to do more. The formula for schools need to be done again. These formulas have not even been touched for years, decades. And those are the things you need to work on. But that premise that, and this is from a local government, elected, the premise that we're keeping property taxes down, yeah, you're keeping them down to a point, but then you're paying more because we're going to operational referendums and we're going to school referendums. And some people say, when you do these referendums, the people get to decide. Yeah, they get to decide. And some people are really adamant about, no, I'm not giving anymore, and they'll vote against it. And then all of a sudden you have a city that's possibly getting ready to go to bankruptcy. Some of these people really support their schools, and no matter what the school says, they'll give them the money, and that's great. But their property taxes are still going up, when there could be an issue where if we redid this formula and the money actually started trickling to where they needed to be. I know special needs is huge in the school district. That cost is extraordinary. But the state or they don't reimburse in the way it is. I think it's only 30% or something like that. So when they reimburse, they only reimburse a portion of it. I will speak only for Glendale. Glendale is a mandated, they have a mandate that they have to bus all their kids because they have too many highways and freeways, and and it's not safe for kids to just walk to school because there's too many, roads. And so they are mandated to bus every kid. And that means every kid, even if they live across the street, they have to, if somebody wanted their kid to get picked up and drove across the street, that's what they have to do. And the thing is, even if they have this whole situation and they have all the kids on the bus, sometimes a lot of parents drop their kids off. But if for some reason a parent says, I got a new job, I can't be driving my kid off anymore, you're going to have to pick them up. There is got to be within 48, I think it was in 48 hours, that kid should be able to get picked up. So a lot of times, have you ever, and I know you lived in Glendale, have you ever seen those empty buses just rolling? Because we need to keep the one bus just there. But I believe the state only gives 10% or close to that. And the budget for transportation, because it's mandated. They're not, it's mandated, but they don't fund the mandate.
Yeah, so they don't have to give a whole bunch as long as they fund it. Yeah.
But the transportation cost, I believe when I was on the school boat, was $1.1 million.
Just for Glendale.
And we do a shared transportation with Nicolet School District. So it's Fox Point, Bayside, River Hills, and Glendale. But each of them have $1 million.
Because I've been contracted with the same ones for a long time.
Right. It's not just us and we're splitting this $1 million.
Yeah.
Our school district has $1 million. Another school district has $1 million. And then we try to save costs by contracting together. But that's a mandate that is not funded. So where do you get that money? Instead of putting it into the school system, we have to take the 90% and pull it out of the taxes that we get, because the state has mandated us to do this, but I still have to pay it. And they're only going to give me 10% of that, which is, what is it, $100,000 back?
So it'd be in Glendale River Hills School District. Does River Hills help with some of that?
It's Glendale, River Hills, Fox Point, Bayside. But the thing is, with the River Hills, even with River Hills, Glendale, it's a small sliver of River Hills. It's like a small sliver. They're mostly in the Mapledale Indian Hills School District.
Okay.
And then there's so many other things like where we have, if people are, this is all tax based. When people decide that they are going to send their kids to a voucher school, public school, whatever, that's fine. But if that voucher school or public school does not provide a need that the kid needs, they go back to the school district. And even though the school district is not getting money for that kid, they have to provide it. So people who are homeschooled, they will be homeschooled, and they have a curriculum and they get paid for that. But all of a sudden, they have to provide that kid with gym or art or any special needs they might have.
Getting a YMCA membership.
Well, but that the school would have to pay for it because it's part of what you're supposed to do for school.
Yeah.
I know there is, because we are a mandated school district, I know that there are people who have chosen to send their kids to private school. Now, not even voucher, just they decided to pay for the private school. But Glendale River Hills has to pay them to take the kid to school because we are mandated if they're within a certain range.
The private kid got to get paid to go to
their parent gets paid to take them to school if they go to like St. Roberts or something like that, and it's within their the
now what does that look like? Does that look like monthly? Is that a monthly thing?
Yeah, sometimes it's monthly, sometimes it's a stipend, whatever it is. But all of this stuff, this is like money that we're paying, and we don't see it as being paid money because it's not a tax on the property taxes, but it is because you're doing so many other things just to get this money, and then they claim that it's a $4.5 million surplus.
Billion B.
I keep saying million.
I know, because you don't want to say that.
I
know it's the B thing. It's the
like
B.
Brian
B Sands, y'all.
Yeah. It is ridiculous, and I guess we probably won't have time to talk about the gerrymandering.
Yeah.
But there's an article, and you can go in and read it. It's from yesterday, I believe. Was today the 6th? Yesterday's the 6th.
Yes,
it was yesterday, and it says Wisconsin new maps don't undo gerrymandering. They are as bad as the old ones. And one of the and this is a op-ed. Parts of this is op-ed, and then some of this is based on research, but it talks about how the communities are ignored.
Well, can I point out one part?
Yeah, go ahead.
I like this part in the article that I just, again, thanks to Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and Ryan for creating this album. Just like rigging a map, and this is just what Ryan said in there, just like rigging a map to favor one party, producing these new maps reduces the state to predetermined collection of red and blue precincts. When map drawers obsess over creating an aggregate political outcome and legislative seats, considering what should constitute any particular district in the first place is lost. Even when the goal is to engineer a partisan balance, communities of shared identity and values are often cracked apart. That's deep. Because you could just think about somebody that stay on one side of Glendale and staying like on another side of Fox Point. This person sees his views, and this person in Fox Point with this, half a ticket on their house sees, life and things and they share an alley or they share a creek, but then the districts are different.
Yeah, and they for Glendale, they at least fixed it so we are all under one, because Glendale used to be split.
Yeah.
But now Glendale's with to 10th though. But if you look at that, you have a huge Glendale is more blue than not now. Shorewood is definitely blue. Parts of Milwaukee is blue. So that is almost a guaranteed blue if they would have put like Whitefish Bay, Glendale, and maybe Fox Point to see maybe there's a 50 split. Sometimes it might go Republican, sometimes it might go Democrat. But also the one thing is that the 10th was always, at least the 10th district was a black district. Now it's a minority district. It's not a black district. It's a minority majority district. So if you add all the black people and then all the other minorities that combine into that, that is the higher rate of it.
Okay.
But if you're looking at for at least the Senate district that I live in, there actually, if you went by race, there's more white people, and then it's a bigger amount of African American or black people. But then if you go even deeper to that, what makes it a majority, a 51% majority, is because you add the other minorities in. And then there's some districts like District 11, which I think Representative Drake used to hold. It was really big. Like they had to do some work because it was like 60% black. Why couldn't you put like all of Glendale in 11 so you could have some of that brown deer and conservative, or make up another black district? We lost one.
Yeah.
Well, this is we only got a couple of minutes. We are really doing that the educational piece right now, just trying to get people understanding what is going on in the future. Budget talks start now. I think they're going in session tomorrow, and that's when you really start having to pay attention. Usually we're on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, but we are only on Monday and Tuesday now. We'll be back next Monday with all the greatness of what Be a Voice is and Wisconsin Voices. This is WNOV 860 AM 106.5 FM. Bye, Brian.
All right, y'all. Much love. See y'all next week.
Bye.